All right, so let's talk about something very interesting, and the sense that I think we've discovered a while ago, or have discovered, that aliens do in fact exist, as far as the Fermi paradox being fake. But at the same time, though, there's a lot more than what we really need ourselves to believe. So the reasons to believe that aliens do in fact exist, by definition, an alien would be like just another living organism from like said other planet, or another, basically it could be anywhere in the universe, let's just say. And another thing that I think that we made a lot of mistakes on is that we don't understand, or one thing that we've always misrepresented was we always seem to think that they're all the same. Like, let's say, like take humans, for example. We need water, food, sleep, exercise, certain diets in our foods and all that cause us to do what we do. We burn energy. We are energy, basically. So we are aliens because we live on a planet that has life on it. That's supported for us, in a sense. So that kind of makes sense because that's what we've always told ourselves. So let's take a look at this. So one is bacteria. Bacteria is a living organism in the sense that it's evolved, as it's been found just about anywhere. We found bacteria that could be cold-blooded. Again, example could be the universe. We found bacteria on a planet like Venus, for example, in its cloud surface, where it basically was what is known as an extremo acidophily. It can survive 864 degrees Fahrenheit, or maybe even more. It just goes to show you that every living organism is different. You could technically argue in a way that subatomic particles could technically be a living organism in a way, or everything is a living organism, even if it doesn't seem like it. And it wouldn't surprise me, because the way we look at life, we've always underestimated things to the point where we really haven't really seen what we're capable of. And it brings me to my next point is, like I've said before, like every single thing that we've seen in the universe so far, and as well as the things that we have always just underestimated what the physical properties of it are, like radiation, or everything can exist in a different environment. And maybe we've been looking for aliens in the wrong sense, because we haven't seen them like the exact same way we do, but like they could be different in the sense that they don't necessarily need water, oxygen, or they could be warm or cold blooded based on their antibodies and all that, their ecosystem, their body, their existence, rather, their genetics. Another one, genetics. I have learned growing up that if genetics are the physical apparatus of building blocks, like cells, for example, we are definitely underestimating genetics too, because even as scientists continue to find ways to be able to play basically the hand of a god, we are also, this is actually something else that I don't think too many people know about, but it's something to really, again, like I've said before, it's real easy to forget like what's in front of us. Genetics has stated that even genetics can't be necessarily altered and destroyed up until a certain point. So like, let's say there was an alien civilization at one point, like on Mars or Venus. Here's something really interesting to think about. Even though those planets might not necessarily have life on them now, maybe at one point they did, in the sense that their genetics return back to, because once a civilization dies or a body dies, it decomposes and the energy goes back into the universe. So if that's true, and I believe it because energy can't be destroyed based on the law of conservation, and the first two laws of thermodynamics states that energy is always multiplied, and it never dissipates. It's always cloned somehow. So you can only get more energy through chemical and physical changes than you could if you were just to outright annihilate. And here's something even more crazy to think about. A true annihilation based on antimatter and matter. Keep in mind, there's like an infinite number of ways these properties could exist, and they could dissipate. And there might be even more out there too, but maybe not in this universe. But even what scientists have been able to examine with with antimatter and matter is what is known as a true annihilation, because it's like it just disappears, but it turns into other energy. It turns into, so even a true annihilation by definition, and it just incinerates each other. It disappears, it dissipates into nothing, but it still turns into something else. Infinite energy, radiation. And that's why the universe has so much energy, because it always is there somehow. There is nothing, even if quantum physics is true, where it states that nothing is still something, it's got to be somewhere else. So basically, with genetics, it would have to prove that there has to be an alien civilization out there, because even if we're looking in all the right spots, but like maybe at the wrong time, and there's something was originally there before, then its body would have been dead, its genetics would have returned back to the universe somehow, and that would prove that something would have been there before, because again, bacteria could have been there, and the same kind of bacteria that's found in our bodies. If you ask a scientist that studied like what is it? I hate forgetting things. It's like a form of study of the human body and anatomy. You would understand that the human body is even made up of more unknown bacteria, and scientists have speculated, hey, wait a minute, maybe that bacteria could have came from other planets too, that could have belonged to something else at one point. So it kind of goes into the idea that maybe humans really aren't just, we didn't just evolve from this planet. It could have been from bacteria from some other planets, from so many other places, and we just ended up here. It's some wild stuff, but the further you go, it's like, humans weren't originally on this planet. There's reasons to believe, we could believe through science that before this planet was created, it came from the universe somehow, right? Stardust, or even other forms of knowledge. But basically, what else is there to say other than that, So basically, it would be like, even if a civilization was there at one point, it could still be here because the genetics are in the universe. Again, we've discovered physical genetics from the universe that we didn't even find from fossils. They could have been from asteroids, meteorites, bacteria itself, or some kind of radiation. So what that means is we've discovered that, yes, there could have been more out there that we don't know. But then again, but here's where the question remains, though. Let's say a scientist pulled like a random piece of genetic from like the universe. First of all, what genetic is it, and where did it come from originally? We would, it would be a lot of wild questions to really ask ourselves. Another one could be is, if you think about it like this, say like we went to another planet, basically, we would still be in the presence of like other planets, but we wouldn't really know like how old that planet is until we really study it. So a lot of time could pass, a lot of time and space rather. So that really is interesting in the slightest, because, there's so many planets out there. There's more than one planet out there, obviously. So that has to be proof that, hey, if we're here on this planet, maybe there's a good chance it could be another one out there. Maybe they just don't want to be found. Maybe that's why, we haven't found them yet. Or maybe they want to keep it a secret because governments don't want people knowing about it right away. Maybe not. Or maybe they're watching us right now, but they're not, who knows. But there's that. So then there's also energy, like in the sense that kind of like how everything cannot be destroyed, but it's if everything really is, infinite. And again, obviously humans haven't been there yet. We haven't discovered everything yet. Then maybe aliens are just hiding somewhere in a way that they have to be out there somewhere waiting to be discovered. I still think that'd be a good way to look at it. Energy has proven that, living organisms do in fact produce enough energy. So where does all this energy come from? From other living organisms, right? So if that is true, then that is proof right there. There's got to be something out there somewhere. Number 6 is galaxies. Obviously humans are not, this isn't just the only planet and only galaxy, and even this galaxy, I guarantee you there's probably a civilization somewhere. It's got to be, with how old a civilization could be. you know. Galaxies, there's tons of them, so many of them. I mean, wow, man, I don't even see why, kind of like planets. Why would there be more than one planet? Well, obviously there's more than one planet because it follows a cycle. Life on this planet follows a cycle too. So I don't see why another planet wouldn't be capable of the same thing as well as a civilization. So we'll go to that. We'll move to universes. I mean, we're going to start talking about some stuff that we're going to start jumping into more than the observable universe. But I do believe that there are more planets, more galaxies, more universes than just this one. If you want to argue black holes lead to other dimensions, because the energy can't be destroyed, but if like a living organism was to try to cross through a black hole in its current state, it would basically die. But its energy would find its way somewhere wherever that black hole leads. So if it leads to another dimension or it leads to another universe, then you're basically like, okay, there's more territory to explore, more possibilities another alien civilization could in fact exist. Okay, number 8. Okay, so number 8 is kind of a little confusing. It's called Beyond, but I say it in the sense that, if we're putting it in terms that, let's say like there are other things that the universe is inside of and not just another universe, but like you want to say like kind of like how a planet's inside a galaxy is inside the universe, and then whatever's beyond the universe itself, if it's not other dimensions and other universes, then yeah, beyond basically. Obviously there would have to be there'd be cycles of cycles, and once again, like galaxies and planets and energy, there's going to be more than one of them, and at the same time, there can't be a limitation on what they call life. Then it would just have to, like, the further out you go, the better chance there is to something else. So I would also argue, and here's one that might actually be like a little bit easier to understand because it's more comprehensible. It would be like moons and rocks, for example, like asteroids. They've definitely found bacteria on different moons. Every moon's different. You could say like a moon could technically be like just an object that orbits another planet, but like at the same time though, it could have been part of something much larger that eventually found its way. If you want to understand like how like rocks are formed in space, it's actually very interesting, and they could be part of something else that very well could have been what they were, but it basically talks about how they're just material that just stuck with acceleration and spiral gravity. Like force is the way it does. Like if you want to take like, for example, our moon, how it crashed into the earth many years ago, and then like the remaining part of it eventually formed the rest of the moon due to its orbit and acceleration. There's a good example for you. But if the moon has bacteria on it, which I wouldn't be surprised, it also would have had bacteria in the sense that it had life on it. So how much different would that life have been, and would it have been a civilization that would have been more advanced than we have been? Again, where do you draw the line that aliens exist, right? Just life forms on another planet. The whole universe could be an alien for all we care, and it would still make just as much sense by that definition. So dimensions. That's what I want to talk about. Okay, so let's assume that there is more than 3 dimensions as far as the universe goes, okay? Whether you want to believe there are creators or goddesses or whatever, like, let's just say, hear me out. So let's say there's a 4th dimension compared to the 3rd dimension. Okay, first of all, we'd have to figure out how big the 3rd dimension is and how much we don't really truly understand what's out there. Like if we found the 4th dimension, it would be incomprehensible to us because it would be something that we can't necessarily perceive, much like if we left this planet. Even if you want to believe like people that have been to space at one point, like Neil Armstrong, for example, stated that when they would stare into the universe, it didn't feel the same. Light was distorted. Whatever was the radiation that was in the universe was kind of making them feel lightheaded and whatnot. Like everything is just completely different, like the second you leave the Earth's orbit. So it's like the universe itself is its own dimension maybe in the 3rd world. It's just weird how it looks because that's how we perceive it. So yeah, different dimensions. Kind of going back to what I was saying though, like if it has to be true too, because if there's more than one dimension, then there also has to be a lot of similarities too somewhere down the line. Kind of like you know, what they do in like Rick and Morty, for example, where like they go to another portal and like there's another dimension that's just them, but maybe a couple details are changed, and it's like an infinite dimension of some kind. And or maybe they just, you know, choose to explore like the universe they're already in somehow. You know, just kind of copying that idea. It'd be like the same thing like with our dimensions. You know, if we had the ability to get into a spaceship and actually travel at light speed somehow without killing ourselves, you would have to believe that you would eventually run into something that would, there's more planets, more galaxies that would basically have something to do with the different amount of possibilities that exist. So if that is true, and there's obviously reason to believe that everything in the universe is somehow, like it's moving at such a rate and moving to a point that we don't really truly understand everything, then the only thing we really can hope for at some point down the line is that, you know, we're eventually going to discover nothing but new things that we haven't seen before. And I mean, I do believe it, like, because again, you know, if you think about it, with every new planet that's discovered, every new galaxy that's discovered, every new possibility that's thought of that hasn't been thought of before, you know, and even other dimensions, the further out you go, the more possibilities you have, and therefore there's a better chance that something has to exist somewhere else. So with that mindset in mind, I mean, for them to say that, you know, maybe we haven't discovered life on other planets, maybe we have, but they're just covering it up somehow. Or maybe, just maybe, the civilization does a really good job hiding themselves, but they're out there though, waiting to be discovered somehow. Because obviously humans aren't the very first thing that was created, and at the same time, there's obviously a lot more out there that's waiting to be discovered, and humans don't know everything. So with those variables and that mindset in mind, I mean, you'd have a better chance of believing that, you know, it's just one of those unknown answers that it begs an explanation, you know, in a sense. You know, if there are other planets out there with other life on them, like who are they and what do they do? What makes them who they are? Their characteristics, their uniqueness, you know, if anybody's interested in that kind of thing. You know, and how long have they existed for? You know, it's very interesting actually to really kind of think about. So with that being said, you know, do aliens exist? I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if it can happen once, it can happen again. And I mean, you look at us, you know, we live on planet Earth and we are a civilization. So if that is true, then there has to be something else out there, you know, possibly, because we exist. We are proof that something exists. So if that is true, there's a lot more than we need to learn. But anyways, you know, or even what has existed before. We basically need a time machine and time travel to really be able to understand this kind of thing. But at the same time, it does really go to show you there's a lot more questions than we do have answers. So again, subscribe if you're not already, and if you, you know, don't mind, request something, and I will be glad to look into it. But this should be at least 10 reasons why we should have already proven that aliens do exist, in a way, because there's always, like Carl Sagan once said, somewhere something incredible is always waiting to be known.